Releasing on May 7th on the Nintendo Switch, 80's Overdrive is another new attempt at capturing one of retro gaming's most beloved memories, evoking the nostalgic style of late 1980s arcade racers such as Outrun while trying to bring its own spice to the formula. Does this game succeed at just that? Yes, although with some very big caveats that may affect your purchase, so stick with me. Also, a quick disclaimer that a copy of 80's Overdrive was provided to me by the developer for this review, which of course will in no way affect my thoughts today. Now, when it comes to presentation, 80's Overdrive is stellar, probably my favorite attempt yet at cashing in on the 80s racer vibe. The game features 18 synth/techno songs from 5 independent artists, 8 distinct visual themes, 6 cars, and if you couldn't already tell, a gorgeous aesthetic. The pixel art, layering, and parallax scrolling is all phenomenal, while still being easy on the eyes. Often these sorts of retro revivals get so wrapped up in being a throwback that they don't improve where it matters, such as with sprite flickering, pop-in, or reducing eye strain, and I'm happy to say that 80's Overdrive excels on this front. The buildings and objects on the sides of the road will pop up at a distance rather than just pop in, for example. You can see pedestrian vehicles and your rival racers much further down the road than I think anybody would really expect, and even the alternating two-tone road coloring doesn't start to wear on my eyes at high speeds like it often does with Overdrive's contemporaries. Well, with one exception at least. The autumn level theme really overdoes it with the trees, which leads to some frame rate stuttering, and it's all just kind of busy and distracting. My only other visual complaint involves the weird emoji pop-ups that some of the other vehicles on the road will emote at random points. Even disregarding that it's so tonally disconnected from this excellent 80s aesthetic to have emojis for no reason, the pop-ups take up enough of the background that they can sometimes stop you from seeing what's coming up ahead and take you off of your focus. That focus, of course, is weaving between traffic and taking first place in street races against 9 CPU opponents in Overdrive's career mode. At the very start, you'll get to pick between a couple dozen avatar pictures that tend to be 80s references themselves, from Marty McFly to Mr. T to Will Smith. I mean, I guess he'd fit the bill as an 80s star, but I would consider his real breakout to be closer to the 90s, but you know what, whatever. Either way, these avatars don't matter at all, it's just kind of a charm thing, and I appreciate it at least. In career mode, you'll take on 36 races across a charming world map. However, it's not just your simple racing experience where you pick a track, play it, and move on in a bubble. Your performance has consequences throughout your entire playthrough. See, every race has an entry fee, which means that if you don't consistently place in the money, you could quickly find yourself washing cars just to scrounge enough together to grind back at the first race. The pop-up window before each race will lay out the buy-in price, traffic conditions, course length and difficulty, and the presence of police because, yes, you can be arrested too, Need for Speed style. It's much more in-depth than I would have expected from this kind of game, and I appreciate it on the surface level, but that's not even all of it. You've got to watch your car's fuel gauge and damage levels, and periodically fill up your tank and/or pay for repairs if you're a reckless driver. Or rather, if you encounter reckless drivers, I suppose. You could be the best driver in the world in a car with a maxed out steering stat, and you'll still get into at least one accident per race thanks to the incredibly frustrating AI. Pedestrian cars will swerve through 3, 4, maybe even 5 lanes of traffic without a turn signal or indicator of any kind, pretty much at random. At first, on the much wider tracks, this isn't a huge deal because you can keep your distance, but about halfway through the game, the roads frequently start to narrow down to just 3 lanes with lots of bends and curves. It'd be one thing if you could stay in your lane, but these cars rarely do, so you'll frequently find yourself trying to thread the needle between the shoulder and a Jeep or a truck, only to get slammed into a tree by Susan because she's texting and driving. Well, this is the 80s, so I guess not texting and driving. I don't know, flash dancing and driving? Well, no, even then, this universe has emojis, so they clearly have smartphones too, so Susan's f***ing texting. The police and other racers are each just as bad, but at least with the police, you have an idea of what direction they're coming from. They'll try to get ahead of you and block you off 3 times and then just give up, and again, this isn't usually too much of a hazard until that midpoint of the game. Sometimes the police will just come right behind you though, and you have no choice but to take some damage. I really liked the idea behind the police mechanic at first, but the fact that they'll absolutely never chase another racer combined with the fact that you can't sneak past them at a distance means that they're just another guaranteed obstacle in a game full of more annoying guaranteed obstacles. Though I do have to say, it's really funny that you can crash into a cop with no consequence, but the moment you pass him, get ready because he's coming for you. at the very least you can actually total other racers' cars just as they can total you, but it's a pretty Pyrrhic victory if you do because repairs are expensive. One bad race or one unlucky race and you could have to pay your entire winning pot plus a couple thousand just to get back to 0 damage. Now, there's no performance penalty to carrying damage, but if you get totaled, your race is over and you're pretty much screwed. On one hand, this adds to the risk and reward, but the difficulty feels incredibly artificial incredibly quickly. Within an hour or so, I was already halfway through the game and getting tired of having to grind earlier levels for money just to buy a new car, repairs, or upgrades. At almost no point in 80's Overdrive did I struggle to get to first place. And for most of the tracks, I rarely struggled to stay there because the other racers were skilled or giving me a challenge. No, the challenge here is staying way ahead in first place with no competition whatsoever and hoping that Susan doesn't decide to T-bone you again and slow you down so much that you're suddenly in 5th. If I'm playing a racing game, I would much rather race with the opponents than play a New Jersey Turnpike simulator against the traffic. And frankly, the game just doesn't have great course variety. Visually, again, the variety is excellent. I really can't stress enough how much I love this game's aesthetic. The team nailed it, but mechanically, the game leaves so much to be desired. Most of the career mode tracks, even the ones labeled as short, are several minutes long, or at least they feel that way because nothing is going on in them. Every now and then when you choose a race, you'll get an optional challenge mission pop up, like collect VHS tapes or floppy disks, do damage to a specific racer, or worst of all, throw a race and get paid even more than you would have gotten for winning. But these all come so infrequently that they simply aren't enough. Also, I really can't stress enough that I would never want to throw a race in this game because I'd rather just play that track once and then never again. I'd honestly rather have every race have an optional challenge objective just to fill in the long stretches of nothing. Outside of career mode, you can play the time attack mode that takes a page, or maybe the entire book, from Outrun, or you can design your own courses with the track editor. We'll touch on these in a second. First, I want to point out that despite being released exclusively on portable systems, with an original 3DS release back in 2017, before the Switch release this week, there is no quick race mode. If you want to play a quick race, you can either try one of the 36 pre-designed career tracks, or try and quickly fumble through the clunky track creator menus to make a new, somewhat random track. The time attack mode doesn't have any opponent racers as you'd expect, so your quickest way to just play this game is to race against nobody. The track editor was one of the things I was looking forward to trying the most, with promises that you'd be able to share your own custom tracks with your friends via a password system. They were telling the truth, but it's not really a track editor in the traditional sense. It's just playing with the different sliders so that the game creates a level for you and spitting out a code for the level that really isn't yours in any way. I wasn't really expecting a ton once I saw that no tracks in this game had course maps, but I was really hoping that you could at least lightly edit when the course turns or when you'd enter a tunnel or any other visual indicators of any sort. Alas, no. Also, I've gotta be that guy and point out that the first time I raced on my own custom track, the game crashed. Perhaps this was just a 1 in a million bug, and it certainly didn't happen again when I retried it and other new custom levels, but that's a bad enough look that I have to mention it. It's likely more common than 1 in a million though, since nobody caught that somebody misspelled the word length front and center on the track editor page, not once, but twice. Ouch. And last up is the time attack mode, which is both probably the strongest overall game mode and also the one that most exposed the game's most fatal flaw, its bad controls. See, through all of my previous complaints with traffic and struggling starting about halfway into the career mode, I was thinking to myself what you've probably already written in the comments, that I should just get good. Why was I struggling here when I would rarely struggle in other racing games? Well, Time Attack, thanks to the mode offering a points multiplier for coming close to other vehicles, helped me realize just how bad the dead zone is on movement inputs. Now, I tested this both on Joy-Cons and a Pro Controller, both with the analog stick and a D-pad, and the game just does not register soft inputs, or even medium inputs really. There's no nuance here with the controls. You'll either be going straight or you'll be in a full-on turn. There's no such thing as minor corrections here, which means that if you want to get all of those sweet bonus points for near misses, you are 100% going to collide with another car, even if that car doesn't randomly decide that now is the perfect time to swerve left. Once I noticed this dead zone, I couldn't unnotice it, and all of my struggles trying to thread the needle before made so much more sense. The time attack mode itself, I enjoyed, especially when I stopped trying to narrowly avoid traffic. While it follows Outrun's branching paths approach, this mode seems to be endless from what I can tell, or at least it loops between all the track themes a few times before stopping. The visual transition between areas is pretty undercooked, but I won't knock it too much for that. I definitely will knock it for its handling though, because I would rather play the real Outrun with strong controls than an endless mode inspired by Outrun with very rough controls. With all of this said, I'm sure you can guess my answer here, but do I recommend 80's Overdrive? Not for its $10 asking price, absolutely not. As far as I can tell, this exact game, minus a few songs, was available on 3DS 2.5 years ago for $5. Nothing I see here justifies doubling this game's price for the Switch port, especially given all of the problems this version has. Hell, for $8 you can get the real Outrun on Switch, and sure, you'd miss out on this game's career mode, but honestly, it's more of a novelty than a strong feature. I got about an hour of great fun out of the career mode, and everything quickly fell apart after that. At that cheaper $5 price point, if this game does go on sale at any point, I could recommend it for that at least. It's a shame, a lot of the pieces are here, just in a really frustrating order. The avatar pictures show so much character, and yet they're barely used to identify other racers. They could easily replace the dumb emojis with these and start to establish a sort of rivalry between the player and that one CPU who keeps getting in their way. The risk-reward money system is a great idea on paper, foiled by outright bad pedestrian movement patterns and outright bad controls. The game nails the 80's nostalgia aesthetic and then fumbles it with a game that's just too all over the place to really stand alone. 80's Overdrive could and should have been the Outrun revival that countless have tried to create, but nobody has been able to quite nail down. Instead, like those others, this game falls short. Thank you very much for watching if you've made it this far, and if you'd like to watch another video about racing games, here's one where I ranked every Sonic racing game. If you're new here and you liked what you saw, make sure to subscribe, and as always, until next time, stay golden. This video was made possible in part thanks to supporters on Patreon, including my Golden Bolt backers such as Goldstorm07 and Silver Bolts like Mayor Hairbear and Buckles Chucklow. If you would like access to exclusive behind-the-scenes perks and bonuses, or you just want to support future videos, visit patreon.com/thegoldenbolt. Thank you.